Hey, what is going on, everybody? Bauer Brown here. Welcome back to the channel, guys, and welcome to another video. So what I have for you guys today is something a little bit different. I don't want to say out of my wheelhouse, but something maybe I don't typically cover. But what you're looking at here is a copy of a complaint. So a lawsuit has been filed from the United States of America against Adobe Incorporated and two of their higher up executives. Now, maybe you have been following this story, maybe you have not. Maybe this is the first time you've been hearing about this, but this has been really big news for a little while now. All right, so it turns out Adobe is just like scum of the earth bad, like really bad. I hate saying it that way, but if you've been following a story and reading everything they've been up to, that's not far from the truth. All right, now I personally use Adobe products, and I have for a lot of years. I've gotten very comfortable with Adobe products. And they're a good product. You know, regardless of the company, the product is still good. All right. But anyhow, like I said, they're getting sued by the Federal Trade Commission and the Department of Justice. So when you got those two coming after you, you know you done messed up. All right. So I can't imagine this is going to turn out to be a slap on the wrist. They're in for a rough ride for the next few years. You can only imagine what this is doing to their customer piece. People are jumping ship like crazy. I can only imagine. And we'll get to that because that's part of what this video is about. But anyhow, I won't get into everything. I'll put a link to the actual file here. This, what do you call it? The complaint. So I'll put a link to that if you're interested in reading, if not. But it kind of gets into a little bit about what they're doing. I guess they've been deceiving their customers in lots of different ways. Tricking people into signing up for their most expensive plans and not letting them know that, like burying the fine print, like they're burying the terms in the fine print. Like, you know, their most expensive plan, this monthly plan, you're locked into it for a year. And if you try to cancel early, you get early termination fees. They make it nearly impossible to cancel. Lots of different ways they make it impossible. I mean, they'll outright hang up on you or stick you in a continuous loop of getting transferred from one operator to another operator. If you make it far enough in the process, they'll transfer you over to a retention specialist whose only job it is to try to keep you as a customer, offer you discounts, threaten to kidnap your family, whatever they need to do. I don't know if they really do that, but I wouldn't put it past them. But literally everything. It's one of those like pushy salesman type deals. I'm sure you've come across it where they just will not let you go. They just, one of those deals. All right. Now I've heard stories where they even went through that and Adobe says, you know, fine, we'll cancel your account. And then they never cancel the account. It just shows up on your bill again the next month. So anyhow, lots and lots of really bad stuff. Now, a little while ago, not too long ago, it came out. I kind of personally think it was a bit of a misunderstanding, maybe not entirely. Initially, it was a misunderstanding where people were starting to say that Adobe owns all your stuff. Now, I've heard this about Giants software as well, and it's not true. They don't own anything that you do. It doesn't work that way. Somewhere they put it in their terms of service that they were allowed to train their AI. They were allowed to use your material to train their AI, and they automatically opted you in. So they didn't, you know, tell you that, hey, this is what's coming. And if you want to opt into the program, you can. They just kind of quietly implemented it and then left it up to you to figure it out for yourself that this is what was going on and then opt out if you wanted to. Never brought it to anybody's attention. So that was a pretty shitty thing to do. All right. So with me personally, I don't care. What the hell would I care? I mean, you want to train your AI on my YouTube thumbnails or whatever weird project I've been happening to be working on that month, fine by me. I really don't care. But not everybody has that luxury. You know, a lot of people have clients. You know, a lot of it's sensitive information. Maybe you're working for, I don't know, a movie studio or a gaming studio, and you have materials that, you know, you don't want released to the public, or, you know, maybe it's just like I said, your clients just don't want their information or their likenesses or their images shared. Right. So I can see how people would get pissed off. Definitely. All right. Now, like I said, I personally haven't had an issue with them because I never had to deal with them. I wasn't happy about going to the subscription model, which it seems like a lot of software companies are doing these days. It's just, it sucks. It really does. It used to be, way back in the day, you could just go out and you can buy the software. It was expensive as hell, but you could buy it and you owned it. And that was it. And those days are gone for lots of different pieces of software. All right. The better companies are realizing that this is kind of a mistake and a lot of people don't like it and they're moving away from that model. But I think the larger majority of them, once they realize how much money can be made, I think it's here for the long run for a lot of people. But anyhow, so that's the story with Adobe. I'm not going to keep going on and on about them. Apparently, they've been very, very, very bad. I do, however, I don't want to say I recommend their product because aside from everything else, Adobe still makes a good product. One of the big things I think here is they were the only horse in the race, right? They got to the point where this just happened not too long ago, that they tried to buy out a company for, any type of competitor that comes their way. They try to buy them out and just bury them, like any competition that they have. And it's just happened where they were going to buy a company out for, I don't know, quite a few billion. And the European Trade Commission had to step in and say, no, that's not happening. And all they were going to do is just bury that company. Maybe they would incorporate some of the technology, but they're trying to be the monopoly and make sure, like I said, they're the only horse in the race. Not fair. It's hard to find, any other software that really competes with Adobe on a one-to-one level. It just doesn't happen. And it's for good reason because, Adobe is just pushing their weight around and making sure they're number one. So anyhow, like I said, people are jumping ship like crazy. And I don't blame them. I really don't blame them. And honestly, I've been thinking about it myself only because of the subscription fees. Like I said, I'm really familiar with Adobe's products. I like them. They're easy to work with. I'm familiar with them because I've been using them for so long. And, I like the product. I do not like their subscription fees. Right. So now I'm to the point where I think I pay upwards of $80 a month for now I got the entire suite, like every Adobe product, which is great because, I'm not limited to what I can do. I can do anything I feel like getting into that month. So it's really nice to have all those products, but not really nice to be, paying that type of money. When you look at the end of a year, when I pay over $1,000 a year, in subscription fees, it's just a little too much. Okay, sorry, I had to put you guys on pause for a minute, but I forget where I was now. I was talking about subscription fees, and like I said, it's just become too much, to be paying that kind of money for these products. No matter how great they are and how much you like them, it gets to a point where enough is enough. And that's where I'm at these days. There are substitutes. We've been over some of this before, like Instamat. Instamat is a very close runner-up to Substance Painter, right? So that's one of the big things when I was getting into modding and making maps and stuff like that, that was really holding me back. I got into modeling, but there was really no good, there was no good Photoshop alternatives. You had GIMP and you had Paint.net, but how good are they really? They can only get you so far. You're really limited by the software, right? So if you didn't have, a good replacement for like, say, Substance Painter, you're just limited. The quality of your work can only be as good as the quality of your software because there's only so much you can do with free software or cheap software, or what have you. All right. So that brings me to where I'm at today. So little by little, I'm one of these days, I'm trying to get to the point where I can cut the cord with Adobe and just be done. I don't want to pay the fees anymore, even though I love the software. I'm used to it. If I can get myself to the point where I'm comfortable enough with other software that does everything I need them to do, Adobe's gone. All right. And that's what I want to talk to you about today. So with everything going on with Adobe, Adobe's in for just a very rough ride over the next couple of years. And other companies that are in a position to actually give Adobe a run for their money, boy, they're smelling blood in the water right now, and they're being smart about it, right? So they're taking advantage. One of the companies that I want to talk to you about today is Affinity, right? They're owned by Serif, who owns Canva, but anyhow, Affinity Photo. Now, if you look what we have here, what they're doing is they're giving away 6-month free trial. 6 months. A lot of places are 7 days, 30 days max, 6 months. Now, this 6-month trial, it doesn't matter if you had a trial. Maybe you tried it just last month. They're wiping out everybody's previous trial fees and they're allowing you to try the software again. Now, I've already had I've owned Affinity and I've had an account. Now, I haven't for a little while now, but I'm getting back into it. I'm giving Affinity another shot. Now, Affinity, this photo editor is the closest thing you're going to get to Photoshop, and there's not much that Photoshop can do that Affinity cannot. Now, there are some things you're going to get that in any software. There's always going to be some things that it just doesn't do. But I'd say that does 90 to 95% of everything that, Photoshop can do. So if you've been to that point in your mapping, and if you're anything like me, when you get into mapping, you'll eventually get into modeling. When you get into modeling, you're going to get into texturing and all these different things. And you're going to want these pieces of software, decent software that can propel your work, right? That can support, where you are with your work. And Affinity, like I said, is probably the closest direct replacement you're going to get to Photoshop. GIMP can't touch it. Paint.net certainly can't touch it. So like I said, you might as well own Photoshop if you own Affinity. So anyhow, like I said, they're giving you a 6-month free trial, regardless of whether or not you had a previous free trial. So, normally when you try an application again, it just won't install because you've already tried it. Now you get to buy it kind of thing. But they're doing away with that. So 6 months. So when your 6 months is up, now you can buy it for 50% off. All right. So that gets you down to $35 for this Affinity software, which is unheard of. Now, this $82.99, you can get the whole suite. So if you need like Designer and Publisher, you can get those as well. So there's 3 different pieces of software here. All right. And like I said, if you want to get into, maybe start doing your own texturing work, and I use Photoshop for lots of things. I'm going to get to a point here where I want to do some videos and show you how to make your fields a lot easier. Now, if you're making fields on like a custom location, like my current map, there's one method that I use, which involves Photoshop. Very, very quick, very, very easy. There's another method that I've been toying around with that if you made up your own fields within the editor, you can still, you're going to use the info layer and field dimensions with bitmap, but you don't have to color everything in on an info layer. It's a super duper easy way to do this in Photoshop. All right. So this is going to be one of those things that if you don't have Photoshop, neither one of these methods are going to work really well for you. Unless you can make it work in GIMP, which is a good possibility. But why would you want to when, for $35, you can own the closest thing you're going to get to Photoshop, right? So I would take advantage of this. I mean, I already have, it's reinstalled. I'm ready to go. I'm going to take these 6 months to familiarize myself, with the software, to the point where I know what I'm doing. I know what's going on. And after 6 months, I'll have a really good feel for whether or not, this is going to be a good replacement for Photoshop or not. Now, the nice thing about the trial here is they don't ask for credit card information, right? So it's not one of those deals where just give us, credit card and after 6 months, we'll start charging you. Nope, doesn't work that way. All right. It's a one-time fee for the software. It is not a subscription service. Doesn't work that way. I mean, the company's doing all the right things as far as I'm concerned, right? So, like I said, if you got to the point where, you feel like you're going to get to the point where, you want to step up your game, but you just need better software to get, the better result. This is your chance. Get in with Affinity, download it now, get your 6-month trial, start getting used to it. pay your 35 bucks, now or after 6 months, up to you, and get rolling. Now, the nice thing about Affinity here is now I played around with it, a little bit since I've started up here. Now here it tells me I have, 180 days remaining trial here. But when you start up, there's lots of resources on the internet for Affinity, just like there is in Photoshop. So you can go through any one of these lessons, take the lesson, familiarize yourself, with most of the tools and the shortcuts and what have you. One of the things I noticed that it doesn't do right off the bat is AI, or at least not yet anyhow. So it doesn't have like generative fill and stuff like that, but big deal. It has, the clone tool and everything else that you're going to need. So like I said, it can do just about everything that Photoshop can do with, a few exceptions. But the interface itself is pretty much like Photoshop, when you look over on the toolbar here. And most of these, it's pretty nice because most of what shows up over here when I have a document open is in color, right? Which is cool because I don't think Photoshop did that, but it breaks it down for you, right? So you have this, they're called personas. So this photo persona, this is the persona that you'd be using that would be more like Photoshop. Now myself, I'm an amateur photographer as well. So I make use of like Adobe Lightroom, Adobe Photoshop again. So there's a lot of Adobe products that I use based, on what I do between making maps and working on graphics or just the photography end of things. But they do have this develop persona, right? And this, see, I need something loaded up here, but the develop persona is just like Camera Raw or Adobe Lightroom, right? It's perfect. I mean, it does everything. You just need to give it a chance. Give it a chance. Download it, start throwing some pictures in there, work on, here, we'll go back to the website really, really quick because it shows you like everything you can do here. I mean, like I said, it supports layers. Just think everything that Photoshop can do that this can do, just as easy, and this is where I get into like the photography end of it, like photo retouching, stuff like that. It obviously has, full RAW support because when I shoot, my pictures, I shoot in RAW. I don't do JPEG or anything like that, which most people do, or at least people that are really into it. But it has full RAW support, so you can go through and make all your edits, just like you would in what do you call it, in Lightroom. All of your brushes and stuff, right? So it supports brushes just like Photoshop does. I think it even supports Photoshop brushes. Like you could just take your Photoshop brushes, dump them right in here and they'll work, I believe. I know that it does open Photoshop documents, right? So if you have a bunch of projects, you have these bunch of these PSD files laying around and you want to open them up inside of Affinity, no problem. It'll do that. It'll even save it in a PSD format if you want it to. I have a feeling eventually, you're just going to get to the point where you're going to make the switch, which is what I'm hoping to do. But if you get into compositing and stuff, which I did for a long time, I was getting into this type of artwork, it handles all that. You can do, cutting out objects like it says here, making precise selections and, cutting out objects and just like you said, you name it. If you can do it in Photoshop, you can do it in here and you'd be silly not to jump on this deal. Right. So now you're one step closer, to being where you want to be with your modding. Right. So Instamat, I've done a video on Instamat. Hopefully you guys watched it. Hopefully you downloaded it. Now I've been a little bit lazy about it. I've been working mostly with, I'm used to Substance Painter, even though I pay for it, with my account, they give me so many free, I'm at a loss for words here, but you get different materials. Right. So I get so many free materials a month and I got a couple hundred that I can use. So I'm never without materials. So if I'm going through the Adobe site and I see like a really cool material, I'm like, hey, that's what I need, right? For my next house or my next whatever. So it's one of the reasons I really stick with them and haven't given Instamat that much of a chance. But I have played with Instamat and it's extremely powerful. And like I said, it's like Affinity here. It's about as close as you're going to get to Substance Painter and it's free. So between having Affinity, having Instamat, and I really don't know what else you would need because those are the two programs that I use, the most frequently is I use Photoshop and Substance Painter. Now, sometimes I'll use Materialize, or I have one or two other applications I'll use depending on what I'm doing, but they're also free. So I'm getting pretty close to the point where I'm hoping to cut the cord myself and just do away with Adobe. A one-time payment for Affinity, which is great. I may switch over to DaVinci Resolve for my photo editing, or not my photo, my video editing. Because there's other things I like to get into. I do toy around with like After Effects and stuff like that. So there is, a paid plan with DaVinci that I can get into. But for my videos, I can get away with OBS for my videos. I mean, my videos are nothing special, edited in any kind of fancy way that, I need any kind of special software. But there is stuff that I dabble with, and eventually I would like to step up my game, just like I did with, mapping and modding. I want to progress to that next level. Maybe get into some really cool graphics or some cool effects and whatnot. And, one day I'll grow up to be awesome. You never know. But anyhow, guys, this is what I'm trying to say. Adobe have been bad actors, and everybody else is taking advantage of them not doing so well these days. And, likewise, you get to take advantage. And this is the deal that I'd like to bring it to your attention, just in case you missed it and you haven't been following, what's going on lately. This is where we're at. Like I said, Adobe's in trouble. Get your copy of Affinity now. You will not be sorry that you did. Pretty sure, you got a 6-month trial. 6 months. If you just save up $5 a month, well, you'll still be $5 short, but anyhow, you can save up enough money that at the end of your trial, you can afford the $35. Just take advantage of it while it's here. And that's it. Between these two programs, you should be well on your way to stepping up your modding game to the next level. All right. So that's pretty much all I wanted to say. I'm going to quit going on and on about it. There was one other thing I did want to mention before I quit this video, but I can't remember what it was. Anyhow, I don't know. If I remember, next video, I guess. So with that being said, I am Bauer Brown, and I'll see you on the next one.